In this video, I'm going to show you how to implement a pagination loop within a UiPath API workflow. First, go ahead and create a new API solution. We're going to implement a workflow which executes HTTP requests to a paginated endpoint, loops through all the pages, aggregates the results, and outputs them as the workflow's response. Let's start by adding an HTTP step on the canvas and setting our open endpoint as the activity URL. Now let's debug. We just want to understand how the HTTP response is structured and think about how to best implement the pagination loop. We notice the response contains a next parameter, which contains the full URL for the following page of results. We want to save this value and execute our next HTTP request using this particular endpoint. We go to our data manager and create a variable. Then add an assign activity on the canvas and save the value of the next property to our variable. This way, we'll be able to use the next URL variable as a dynamic endpoint for our HTTP request step. But when our first loop iteration will execute, the next URL variable will have no value. So we want to assign it an initial value, the version of endpoint with no specified page, the one that we used in our previous debug. And let's not forget to replace the HTTP request URL with our variable. Now we're ready to implement the loop. Add a do-while activity on the canvas and open its condition editor. When the next URL parameter returns an empty value, it means that there are no more pages of results, so we'll add a condition to execute the loop while our parameter returns a non-empty value. Move the previously implemented HTTP request and assign steps inside the loop. Each loop iteration returns an array of results, but we want to aggregate results from all pages, so we're going to use another variable to consolidate the data. We'll change its type to array and set the item as object. We're going to use a script step to append results of each page to our array variable. This activity allows writing JavaScript code directly within your API workflow. In this case, we're going to use it to write a concatenation function and accumulate results as we iterate through pages. Let's open the expression editor and type in the function. Once the loop will finish executing, we want to output the results as the response of our API workflow. So let's create an output argument for that. Set its type to array. Now we'll add a response step on the canvas in order to set the argument value. Open the expression editor of the response step and pass the aggregated results to our output argument. Finally, let's hit debug again and watch our workflow run. Once the debug has successfully completed, you'll have the response in the output panel. You can see the number of iterations that were executed, the results of each iteration, as well as the consolidated results that we passed to our response. And that's how you can implement a pagination loop in a UiPath API workflow. Thanks for watching.